Welcome to Dr. Lotte's Science with Soul, the podcast that transcends the boundaries between science and spirituality. Prepare to be uplifted, transformed, and awakened to create a path to healing your own life physically, emotionally, and spiritually by bridging the gap between science and soul. Welcome to Dr. Lottie's Science with Soul. Today's guest is Karen Noé, who is a renowned psychic medium, spiritual counselor, and healer with a 2-year waiting list. She is the author of We Consciousness, Your Life After Their Death, the Angel Quest Oracle Deck, and Through the Eyes of Another, and The Rainbow Follows the Storm. Karen is the founder of the Angel Quest Center in Waldwick, New Jersey, where she teaches classes, gives readings, and practices alternative healing. You can listen to Karen on the Angel Quest show on all podcast platforms. To find out more about her, visit her website at karennoe.com. So welcome, Karen. It's such an honor to have you as a guest today.
Thank you so much for having me on.
I can't wait for you. You have such a fantastic journey, and it's just so amazing. So many things that I want you to share with the audience. But before we dive into the more specific questions, how did you get started on this path of being a psychic medium and spiritual counselor and healer?
I've always been psychic, even as a little girl. My father used to take me to the racetrack, and I picked the winning horses for him. Now I'm an animal activist, and I don't go to the track. I want to go on record saying that. But yeah, he took me to the track, and I would know things before they happened. I would dream things before they happened as well. And then about 25 years ago, I was going through a very difficult time in my life. And I just sat at the edge of my bed and I yelled at God and I said, am I going to be okay? And with that, I saw a light that came towards me from the other side of the room. And as it was coming towards me, I said, if you're not of God, please leave. Well, now I know everything's of God, it's a different way of thinking now. But at that time, what I meant was if you're not of the light, good, whatever, that's what I meant. But it continued to come towards me and eventually enveloped me. And at that time, I heard an audible voice that said, Lucia, Lucina, Bella, Lucia, Lucina. And for those Italian listeners, they know what this means. For those who are not, it means light, beautiful little light. And I've since learned that was St. Francis of Assisi, who's been guiding and protecting me ever since. But right after that experience, I started to receive messages from those who passed. I didn't want to do this. I would be reluctantly giving message. I'd be on the soccer field. My son would be playing soccer and would be in the stands. And one of the mom's grandmother was coming through. And I started doing that slowly. And then eventually I gave in and I started doing Reiki in the back of a hair salon. And I was always doing healing on people, just the Reiki. I'd say, oh, there's somebody. I'll never forget one of the first appointments I ever had way back. I saw a kangaroo with boxing gloves punching the air. It's in my mind's eye. It's not outside of myself. I can't explain it. But and I kept seeing it, and the name Robert, and I kept seeing a kangaroo with boxing gloves punching the air. And finally I said, okay, I don't know what this means, but there's somebody named Robert coming through, and he's showing me a kangaroo with boxing gloves. And the woman jumped off the table and she said, that's my friend Robert. He boxed kangaroos in Australia. So that's not something I would have known. So I said, oh, I guess I'm really getting this. But then it started from there, and then it started to grow. So she told a few people and they told a few people, and the reluctant medium. I didn't want to do this. Very shy.
Right. But it was there. You came to the world with these gifts, right? So what age were you then at that time?
Oh, this was, I was in my 40s, maybe. I'm 66 now.
Oh, we're
So
the same
many
age.
years ago. What are we? 1958,
Yep, 1958. What month?
April 7th. How about you?
May 28th.
Oh, you're not a Taurus, you're
I'm a
Gemini.
Gemini.
Gemini, okay. Yeah. So yeah, it happened like when I was younger, I would have, my grandmother had a bookie. And she'd say, what numbers, Nikki the bookie? And she'd say, what numbers? And I would say the numbers. But anyway, I don't like using these things for that. Um, but I've noticed the most important thing in my life, what I've learned is to empower people to do what I do. You know, it's not about, oh, Karen can do this. I truly know that we all can do this. It's just you have to learn how to tap into that, how to tap into your intuition, how they're speaking to you. And I'd love maybe later on to talk about how everyone can tap into this ability. Because, yeah, I can do it, but so can everybody else.
I love it. But then you had, I mean, the how I learned about you was actually hearing you channel Wayne Dyer. And I remember Wayne Dyer, I mean, I was in my 20s. It was before I even had kids. It was the early 1980s. And I think it was my mother-in-law who found Wayne Dyer. And she was kind of the one who fed me all the spiritual. She was kind of my guide here on earth to develop me spiritually. And we had these cassette tapes that came. It was like 6 cassette tapes where
Mhm.
Wayne Dyer was speaking, and he talked about, he had some funny examples of, when you merge onto the highway and you don't have the merging gene. And it was, he was so much humor in the way he delivered what he was teaching. And I remember bringing this cassette tape back home to Sweden to my
Oh,
parents.
wow.
And, my family is still in Sweden. And my parents fell in love with Wayne Dyer. So, and then I stumbled upon you at some point and I was like, oh my gosh, she's channeling Wayne Dyer. So, how
Yeah.
did that whole thing come about?
Okay, reluctantly again. I always was a fan of Wayne, but I did not know him personally. We were fellow Hay House authors. So I didn't even see him at events. I went to his events. And I was in the audience and everything. I loved his books. So when he passed, what happened was I also have a podcast called The Angel Quest Show. So about a month before he passed, I had his daughter Serena on my show. And we were talking about her book, um, Don't Die with Your Music Still in You. It's a wonderful book. So we were talking about that, and I had her contact information. After he passed, I said, oh my God, I don't know what I can do. I need to do something for her, for the family, just to let them know that he truly is okay. So I contacted her, I emailed her, and I said, Serena, I'm so sorry about your dad. Please know he truly is okay and would want you to be too. I said, ask him to give you a sign to let you know he's with you. Ask him to come to you in a dream and wake you up after the dream so that you remember the dream, his visitation. And then I said, I'd love to send you a book. At that time, it was my latest book was Your Life After Their Death. I said to her, I'd love to send you a copy of this because it tells you how to do what I do, receiving messages and so forth. It's everything I've learned over the many years of doing mediumship to teach you how to do this, how to overcome grief. Within 5 minutes, she emails me back and she said she'd love a copy of my book. So I sent her the book. Then I was scheduled. You asked for this is kind of long, but I'll make it
No,
short.
no, 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 it's okay.
Okay. So she asked, so I was scheduled to speak about a month after that in Florida about life after death for a Hay House event. Um, and they were going to do the day before I was ready to speak, they were going to do a tribute to Dr. Dyer. So I flew in a day earlier. So, okay, so we're ready. We have there's a bus outside of the hotel going from the hotel to the conference center where we were going to do the tribute. And I'm sitting on the bus waiting to go, and it's Hay House authors and Wayne Dyer's family. I'm sitting there, there's only one seat available on the whole bus, and in walks Serena Dyer. It happens to be next to me. In walks Serena Dyer. She sits down, and I said, oh, Serena, I'm so sorry about the passing of your dad. My name is Karen Noé. And she goes, oh, Karen, thank you so much. I got your book. It's very helpful. And we just started talking, as I told her about dreams and all of that. Nothing really happened at that time. But I said, did anybody in your family ever have a dream? And she told me about a dream that her sister had, in which this was Sage. And Sage had a dream of her dad that her dad walked into the room and Sage remembers hugging him in the dream. And she said she felt his hairy arms. I said, that's a true visitation. without a doubt. That's the way they come. You could feel them, smell them. You know, they come as the age they want to be remembered as. And I talked about all this. So that was pretty much it. We went to the event. You really want to hear this? It's a long one. We went to the
No,
event.
it's okay. It's fascinating. I think
Okay.
it's fascinating.
All right. So we went to the event, and you wouldn't know it, but I am very shy. So we went to the event. I'm ready to go back onto the bus, going back to the hotel from the conference center to the hotel. And I see all of Wayne Dyer's family. I see all of Hay House's authors, my favorite authors. And I said, oh, I can't go on that bus. I'm so insignificant. And I decided to walk back to the hotel. So as I'm walking back to the hotel, I'm saying, I'm so insignificant. I'm so insignificant. And that's when he came through for the first time. Loudly, he said, get out of your own way. And he said, get out of your own way. And I said, Wayne, is that really you? And I said, if it's you, you have to give me a without a doubt sign to let me know it's you. And I continued to walk back to the hotel room. And as I'm walking, I said, okay, how may I serve? Because he used to say, right? He used to say to the universe, how may I serve? And then the universe works in ways to serve you. So I said to him, how may I serve? And he said, you're already serving. I said, fine. How may I serve more? So I went back to the hotel, and there was something very itchy inside of my shirt that somehow got in there. It was something very, so I reached in to get it. And there was a sticker that had somehow attached itself to the inside of my shirt. And on the sticker were the letters W-E. So I took it to mean Wayne, first letter, last letter of his name, because a lot of times that's how I receive messages. Little did I know it was much more than that. But when I saw it, I said, oh my God, Wayne, oh, thank you so much. Oh, I'm not worthy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And he just started to laugh. And that was pretty much it. Fast forward, went home, and Sage, he has 8 children and a wife. Sage contacted me on Facebook Messenger, and we were going back and forth. And then Wayne started coming through with messages personally for her, things that I would never have known. So she said, can I come in to see you? And I said, oh, you know, I'm booked for 2 years ahead of time. I said, yes, I'll get you in somehow. We'll get in. And, you know, so it was a few months after that. Now, just understand, I'm nervous about this whole thing because I've been doing this for many years, but I never did a reading for Wayne Dyer's family. So got off the phone. I went for a walk with my dog, and I started in my mind yelling at Wayne. I said, Wayne, you better come through. You know, I said, you know, I don't know, your family's coming to see me. And he said, he's just, oh, then he started getting very excited. He said, get out of your own way. And he started talking about the afterlife. And he was so excited to talk about the afterlife and what he was experiencing. And then he told me he was going to be coming through singularly for his family to let them know that it truly was him. Specific messages that only they would know. But he was also going to come through as a group consciousness called the We Guides. And the We Guides was going to crew, it's like similar to, do you know, Abraham Esther Hicks channels, a group consciousness, similar to that, in which, you know, he would be part of that group, but it would be hard to differentiate him from all the others. There would be St. Francis, angels, ascended masters, just to talk about 33 concepts they were going to give me to increase the vibration of the planet, because we were going in a very negative direction at that time. And I said, why 33? And he said, because 33 represents spiritual uplifting of all of mankind. Long story short, I'll get down to the nitty gritty. Finally, the family were ready to come. And that morning I felt good. I knew it was I felt him, and I knew he was going to come through, and I'm on my way to the appointment, and a car cuts me off. And on the license plate of that car, it said Dyer 1 on it. So I knew he was going to come through. I take my phone out. I'm trying to take a picture of that license plate. And did you ever try to take a picture of a moving car? It just doesn't work. It was all blurry. But I knew that he was going to come through because that was what it said. And when I got to tell me if you want me to keep quiet because I could keep going.
No, no, keep going. I love
Okay,
it.
okay. So went to the appointment and felt relaxed. And then his wife, Marceline, Sage, Serena, and Summer, those are three of his daughters and his wife, came to the appointments. And immediately they went right to the bathroom. Wayne wanted them to hurry up. Now, here I am trying to make a good impression. I'm saying, oh, and he's saying, tell them to hurry up. So I'm like, I can't do that. He said, tell them to hurry up. I said, I can't. He said, do it. I said, oh my God. So I said, I'm really sorry, but your dad, your husband's saying, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. And Serena right away knew that that was her dad because that's what he used to do to them all the time. So he spoke to each of them differently. He spoke to Serena more forcefully with things that only she would want, he would want her to know that it was really him. Right? She was there, and he spoke because in the 3 years after that, I was on the phone with them at least once or twice a week with all of them. But he spoke to Sky very softly because that's the way he spoke to them. So they all said in the car what they wanted him to mention in the appointment if it was really him, and they did, and he did. One thing that I'd like to mention is during the appointment, he said that Serena was pregnant, and she said, "No, I'm not." I said, "I'm not, I don't know. That's what he's saying." She said, "No, no, no. I just had a baby." I said, "But that's what he's saying." And she said, "Everything else made sense, but that doesn't make any sense." And I said, okay, but he's showing me fireworks, the 4th of July, something about that. She goes, okay. So they went home and she took a pregnancy test and she was indeed in the family way due on the 4th of July. And this happened for 3 years. He would say, call this one now, call that one now, call this one now. And it was always very significant messages at that particular time, which I'd love to share with you later on, but I'm talking too much right now.
No, it's fine. I love it. I mean, it's just, I mean, what a beautiful connection, and the way that the messages came through. And then for his kids to receive each kind of a personal message from him. I mean,
Yeah.
it couldn't be any more proof that we're still there when we go to the other side, right?
Yeah.
Um, what would you say is your most profound message that you've received from
Well,
Wayne?
there were a number of them for the children. And then I could also talk about the we consciousness, which he was he really wanted to talk about too with the we guides. But there were three in particular messages for his family that I really stood out in my mind. Number one, his son Sans. We didn't keep in contact that much, but we emailed every now and then with a few messages here and then. So about a year after that first contact, I went to the bank, and when I came back, that email happened to be on my screen. I don't know how it got there. So I said, I guess he wants me to contact Sans right now. So I call Sans. At this point, I have everybody's phone number, and I call him and I said, what is going on? Your dad wants me to contact you right now. He said, this is amazing. He said he was sitting on a plane going from Florida to Hawaii to move there. And he asked his dad if it was the right move to let him know. And his dad told me to contact him when he was on the plane. And his dad's message was, live your dreams. So that was one. Another one was when Tracy, the oldest child, and she was from a previous marriage, 6 o'clock in the morning, he tells me to call her. And I learned, I tried not to listen. I said, Wayne, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. Call her now. I said, I can't call her right now. Call her now. So I texted Tracy and I said, Tracy, I'm so sorry, but your dad is here. May I call you? And immediately she responded, yes, exclamation, exclamation. So I called her and I said, I'm so sorry about the time, but your dad made me call you right now. And before you say anything, I said, he's saying, yes, he can hear you, but you can't hear him. I said, what does that mean? And she started crying and she said, she just had a dream of her dad. And in the dream, she was yelling at him, saying, "Can't you hear me? Can't you hear me?" And his message was, "I can hear you, but you can't hear me." And finally, I'll give one more. One day I was making dinner and Wayne says, "Contact Serena now, contact Serena now." And I said, "Fine." Contact Serena. She's not answering the phone. So I contacted Sage and I said, "Sage, what is going on with Serena? It's very important that I contact her right now." And she said, "Yeah, something really is going on. She's ready to deliver the baby. We're in the delivery room, me and my family, and she's ready to deliver." I said, "Could you put the phone by Serena's ear?" Now, she didn't post anything on Facebook, so nobody would know. And the message was, "Daddy's here, Daddy's here." And she goes, "Oh," and she was embarrassed, but she said, "I'm so glad he was there." So those are the types of messages that they knew without a doubt that he was still around watching over his family.
I mean, just amazing. There's so much accuracy, and the way the messages came through, there is absolutely no doubt,
Yeah.
that was Wayne, because it's all personal. I mean, you can't make that stuff up if you tried, right? I mean, it's for people
Exactly.
who are out there that are not sure and they're kind of on the fence. Is it real? Is it not real? I mean, this is such a great, beautiful example of, yes, the spirit world is absolutely alive and well on the other side. What is one piece of advice that you would give to someone who, recently lost someone? How can they navigate that?
Number one, to understand that the energy of who we are continues after the physical body dies. That's not something I think or I believe it to be so. I know it without a doubt. And my wish is for everyone to know that as well. And as I said earlier, the most important thing is they are trying to communicate with you as much as you're trying to communicate with them. So, what I would tell them, number one, is to talk to them because they could hear you. And then after you talk to them, ask them to give you what I call it, without a doubt sign, something that stands out. So there are different types of signs they could give, such as they use their energy to go inside of a bird, a ladybug, a butterfly, to let you know they're with you. But the animal would do something that the animal normally wouldn't do, such as land on you or peck at your window, you know, or they make electricity, they flash the lights when you're talking about them, or when it's your birthday, or you're driving and a car cuts you off and you look at the license plate. It could be that, they're trying to communicate with you with their name. They love to show us rainbows on very important occasions as well. They love to come through with songs with the messages that they want you to know, with the perfect words, or your loved one's favorite song comes on at the most craziest time. You'd be in the mall and it's an unusual song and it'll come on. So it's their way of letting you know. There are many ways that they're coming through to you. So the key is to look out and be on guard for these types of signs. And when you receive these signs, tell your loved one thank you, because the more you're aware of these signs, the more your loved one will give you signs. Another thing I would tell them to do is to ask them to come to you in a dream. Okay, so important. And it's important to be patient and wait, and the dream will come when you least expect it. However, it's important to know the difference between a real visitation from them or a dream from your subconscious. You see, a dream from your subconscious might be scary, how they died, they're mad at you. That's not them. When they come to you, they will look amazing. They will come as the age they wish to be remembered as. You'll feel like you've won the lottery when you have a dream, a real visitation from your loved one. Or it may be like Sage's dream. You hug your loved one and you could feel their arms or smell their perfume or something like that. So it's important to know the difference. And you also have to wake up after the dream so you remember it. So you ask your loved one to come to you in a dream and to wake you up after the dream so you remember it. And then be patient and wait. And the dream will come when you least expect it. And finally, most people don't know this one. we all expect to hear a voice or to see an apparition of our loved one after they come, when they're coming to us. But they don't have a physical body, they're spirit. So the dominant way they speak to us are as thoughts that pop in your head for no reason about them. So the next time you're thinking about your loved one, backtrack your thoughts. If you saw something that reminded you of your loved one, or, you happened to walk down their street that they lived on, that's you. Backtrack your thoughts. And if there were no originating thoughts, it just pops in your head, your loved one speaking to you. That's the dominant way they're speaking. That's the way they speak to me. They just pop in my head with unusual messages or pictures and so forth. So to be on the lookout for that.
I love it. And everybody communicates differently too, right? Some people see
Yeah,
images, some people hear things, some
sure.
people feel things. And we're all unique in that way.
Yeah.
And so, some common signs, what would you say is a common sign from the spirit world to give to someone?
They love to use, from my clients and friends, they often receive butterflies, birds, but again, I would say something that is unusual, something that normally wouldn't happen. Could I share a
Yeah,
story?
yeah.
Okay. Now, remember that your loved one's personality continues after the physical body dies. So Wayne Dyer was very loud in life. He was a presence. So when he came through, it was very clear. If somebody's quiet, it's a little bit harder to hear from them and so forth. My friend Marion was loud and she was sarcastic and she played practical jokes, and she passed away. So I told her, Marion, give me a sign, without a doubt sign, to let me know you're with me. And that was it. So the next day, I had envelopes, I had letters that I was going to put in my mailbox. So I was walking down the stairs to on my porch, and I look in my driveway and there's a bird screaming at the top of its lungs. And when I say screaming, it was a little tiny bird looking at me, looking at it. I'm not quite sure if that's Marion. And I walked to my mailbox. The bird flew to the mailbox. Birds don't fly to you, they fly away from you. So the bird flew to the mailbox and is looking at me, screaming at me. And I said, I love you so much. I love you so much. And I had my cell phone in my pocket. And I called my son and I said, Tim, come outside. Marion's here. And he said, what? I said, just come outside. Marion's here. And he witnessed, well, by the time he came out, Marion, the bird, flew back to the tree, but was still screaming. And then a day later, a mutual friend of ours, Carol, she calls me and she said, you're not going to believe what Marion did. And I said, I will. I'll tell you what she did to me. What did she do to you? And she said, Karen, I just painted my kitchen. Just painted it. Opened my sliding glass door. A bird flew in my kitchen, pooped all over my walls, and then flew out. And she said, thanks, Marion. Typical Marion. So that's what I'm saying. So it would be in the fashion of their personality when they were here, is what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great example too of, that the spirit world comes through the way they were when they were here. So if they were a talker, they're going to come through as a talker, right? If
Yeah,
they're quiet and shy, they're going to be quiet and shy on the other side. Otherwise, we
exactly.
wouldn't even recognize them, right? We'd say, no, that's not my dad, right?
Right. I think what they do is they're doing this for the living loved one to know that, let them know it's really them. Because what I hear from people who've had near-death experiences, they're all love and peace and, all of that, which is wonderful. But I'm pretty sure, if they come through smoking or eating popcorn, you're saying, why are they doing that on the other side? Because that's what they were known for, that
Yeah,
type.
yeah. And then you were talking about the we consciousness.
Yes.
What is the we
So the
consciousness?
we consciousness basically is that we are all connected and we are all one. And whatever we do to ourselves or another affects everybody. So that includes all of nature, all animals, and every person on this planet and in all other planets as well. To understand that fully. And it starts with ourselves, to begin loving ourselves first, because we can't extend that love to others if we don't love ourselves. So we have to understand that. It really begins there. And so they gave me 33 concepts of the we consciousness, basically all saying about the oneness of everyone and everything. And they're saying it in different ways. Yeah.
I love that. I mean, it is my work. So the we consciousness, I just never knew that. I mean, I just learned about it from, you and looked up what you had written. Because my second near death experience, I saw the grid around the earth, and then the spirit guide said, everything on earth is connected to each other, but everything on earth is connected up to this grid. And so what I always say to people, how I end my book is, we are all connected. We are all one. It is all divine. And so are you.
Yes.
And I teach a lot of healing classes and ancestral healing, and it's all about, once we heal ourselves, it has a ripple effect through the entire cosmos, right? All your family, your soul family, your children, your grandparents, people in the spirit world, and other planets, just like you said, because it's all connected. And the
Okay.
biggest illusion, right, is that we're separate, because we all think we're
Yes.
separate, right? Just like Einstein said.
Yeah.
And it's so strong. And that's something that happened. And I mean, that was 30 years ago. My first NDE was 32 years ago. My second was 30 years ago. But
I
it's
would love to
really
hear it.
what,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I'd love to hear about it, but
Right. And it's what activated my life path. And then I started here in the spirit world, and,
yes.
all these different things happened. It took me 12 years to trust in it. And then I went to med school. And then, of course, as soon as I graduated, was sent to study mediumship at Arthur Findlay College. So, but I had experiences for all these years since 1992. The day after my first NDE in the ER, a hemorrhage to death in the ER, I started hearing the spirit world the next day. And I'm trying to figure out, how could I have been outside my body yesterday? And now I think I'm hearing my sister-in-law, right, talking to me. And it took me a long time and so many experiences for me to trust it. So it is fascinating for me now to meet you, and the we consciousness. And I mean, it's just amazing. But everything happens when the time is right, right? It's like we have this program or this movie script that we're living out. And I tell people, like October 10th, 2027, that may be the day when all of a sudden you get well, because I was also sick, and then all of a sudden I got well. So it's like we incarnate to have certain experiences too, right?
Exactly. But that's so interesting about the grid and seeing that interconnect. See, as I was saying
Yeah.
before, did you feel people from the other side? Did people who've crossed over when you had your near-death experience?
Right. Well, so I went to this place, what I call the mid station, because I was aware of levels above me and below me. But then, and I heard the most beautiful music, to make it really short. I heard the most
Oh,
beautiful music that you can't make on the earth plane. And then I was enveloped by the bright white light. And I was an atheist at the time. So I was still trying to process my near death experience from 2 years earlier. And then I'm turning around into this light, which is just everywhere. You're just enveloped in the light. But in the light, there is an outline of angels, and the music is coming from the angels. But I'm completely aware of the fact that I don't believe in angels. I'm like, I'm seeing angels, but I don't believe in angels, but that's angels. So it's like the whole experience, right? And then the two spirit guides, and then the grid, and then I got sent back with that message, basically. So, but I know that my near-death experiences are in my astrological chart. And so my first near-death experience, I was told the sun was in the exact same position as the day I was born. And the way they see it in my chart, it says, it had to happen this way, because it's your reminder why you came to Earth and what your work here is. And then they saved me so quickly. So I had a second near-death experience where I got to see the grid, right? Because I didn't get the full effect of the first near-death
wow.
experience. Or maybe it was supposed to be that way. I just had to process it. But it
Yeah.
is fascinating, because it makes me realize how everybody's life here is so unique and so amazing and so divine. Even when we think that we're having the worst time in our life,
Mm-hmm.
we're still completely divinely guided. And it's what, once we come out on the other side of these hardships that we all have to experience in one way or another, but when we come out on the other side, we are typically a completely different person. And
Absolutely.
there's so much growth from that. So I know, you work a lot with grief, and how could you define that, a spiritual event or grief event can be a catalyst for a spiritual opening or a spiritual awakening?
Yes, I see it all the time. People who were atheists, so all of a sudden turning into, they love, they're trying to connect with their loved ones, and now they're believing in God, and the angels and so forth. So and they often say it's the best part of their lives now, and the worst part of their lives, because they're missing a loved one. So, there are ways to deal with grief, but it also is a turning point in people's lives as well. Priorities. We often see, yeah, priorities at that point. We think at work is the most important thing. You're working 80 hours a week, on Wall Street and so forth, and it really isn't, you know? So I wanted to say before I forgot to mention with the we consciousness is yes, we're all connected to God as well, and God is within each one of us, and we're all capable of manifesting miracles in our lives. It's not just certain
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, absolutely. And that light, I didn't believe in God. I don't
Yeah,
call it God. I call it source now,
of
because
course.
I don't want to lock myself into a
Yeah,
religion, because
of course.
religions were in the end written by people, and
Absolutely.
they
Yeah,
excluded a lot of things in the religions that, and it's very patriarchal the way
yeah,
our religions are written. But that is source, and it was the knowing that I was with source. This is where we come from. This is who we are. We carry this amazing light of just unconditional love within us, and this is what we go back to in the end. And it's just that awakening of being a complete atheist or not believing in anything, and then having that experience completely changed my life, and it made me understand. And then of course I had to hear the spirit world as people passed over and it came to visit, and
I, I'm going to ask you something people ask me all the time. Does it frighten you?
in the beginning, I was, it's like, is that you, my uncle, right, is that you, grandma? But then you get used to it. But in the beginning, when I felt the energy, I couldn't tell if it was a good energy or a bad energy, right?
Mm.
So it was that learning process, like, oh, it's you. Okay, now I recognize you. It was just my uncle, or right. But in the
Yeah,
beginning, it was scary because I didn't know what that energy was, that all of a sudden I could feel people being present, or the spirit world being present. But
right,
now it's just part of my life. They're always around us. It's just
right,
right,
right.
a matter of tuning in. But in the beginning, but I also realized that, I mean, I always had that. And people, when I worked with the teachers at Arthur Findlay, they're like, you're a born medium. And I'm like, I was. But then you start thinking back at my childhood experiences and seeing auras around people, and
Did
and
you?
then
Okay.
I telling my friends, yeah, you see that energy field, and they're like, what energy field, right? And then you go, okay, never mind. And so I squashed a lot of those experiences. But it's really interesting because even I remember in my youth I worked for IBM in New York, in Westchester County, and I drove
Okay.
down the Merritt Parkway. We lived in Connecticut, and I could feel my grandmother. She had recently passed away. And I could feel her in my back seat. And that made me feel uncomfortable. And I would look in my rear view mirror. I'm driving. And I'm like, is that you, grandma? Is that you, grandma? Like, you don't make me nervous. And she was such a prankster. So she could definitely like have, done something that would spook me, or, just because she was always playing pranks on people. But I had those experiences even before my near-death experience,
That was
right?
before. Okay.
hmm So all these experiences were there, but I never sort of tapped into it because my belief system wasn't in place. I didn't believe in it, and it kind of just spooked me. And it
Right.
wasn't until I had my near-death experiences, and then it was just a flood. The day after my first near-death experience in the hospital, I could hear my sister-in-law in the left corner of my ceiling saying, everything's going to be okay. And
Oh,
I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like now I think I'm here in the spirit world. What's happening to me? Right? Because it was, I didn't have the belief system wasn't in place. So it was actually my mother-in-law who I told, what had happened. And she said, oh, what happened to you is you had a near-death experience. And she went out and bought me the book Life After Life by Raymond Moody.
and then
And
Moody, yeah,
right.
yeah,
And that's
yeah.
how my journey began in 1992.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. You came back a different person? Did your personality change after that?
I became a different
Like,
person. Yeah. Because I was a programmer and systems analyst for IBM. So very methodical, didn't believe in anything. Everything is black and white kind of, attitude about the world. And of course I changed. My personality changed. I became a different person. I became very spiritual. Yeah, just different.
yeah, how can
Yeah.
you not change after
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah. No, that would be impossible. I mean, that's why the divorce rate is like 80% or something for within the first 7 years of having had a near-death experience.
Is
Uh,
it?
yeah, it's really, really high.
Yeah. I didn't have a near-death experience, but it was a spiritual experience. And after
Hmm.
that, we're very civil, we're kind to each other, but we got divorced as well. How about
Yeah.
you? You
Yeah,
as well.
no, it ended there as well.
Yeah,
Because I
it's
mean, we just sort of
interesting.
grew apart, right?
Yeah,
And we talked about it, and it's, we knew that it was supposed to be this way. We both had that. We were supposed to get together. We were supposed to have kids, and we're still friends. We have a good
yes,
relationship today. So, but we kind of just grew apart, and we both knew we had to go do our things, what we incarnated, what our lessons were in this life. And it
right.
was his mother, right? It was my ex-husband's mother who was the person who developed me spiritually. It was, I mean, really, it's an incarnation in the soul family. It's just a perfect incarnation in where you can see all the different members in the family. We all have our roles to help each other grow. And I'm very, very close to,
She was still
my
alive? I'm sorry.
yeah,
She
yeah,
was,
no, like my ex-husband's younger sister is literally my soul sister. Like yeah, it's fascinating. And it was his mom that, brought me all these different books. She's the one who brought me, Wayne Dyer and all
uh,
these other, right, spiritual teachers in the world.
yeah,
So it was
yeah,
all supposed to be that way, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Fascinating. I love the grid. Everybody talks about the grid. That's something I've never seen, but it makes so much sense. We are all connected, and that I know for sure. You
Yeah.
realize if we raise the vibration of ourselves, if we become more loving and peaceful, we're increasing the mass consciousness, the vibration
Yeah.
of the mass consciousness.
Yes, because we're all connected. I mean, they do studies on that, right? The connection of consciousness around the world.
Yeah.
And Urban Laszlo was uh, he was nominated for the World Peace Prize, I think more than once, right?
Hmm.
He talks about the upshift of consciousness. I think he's probably in his late 70s or something
Yeah.
now, right?
He's
But
amazing.
it's fascinating. Yeah, it's really fascinating how, we are all connected, and it's everybody's everybody's healing and everybody's thoughts and everybody's kindness to other people. It all counts.
And that's good that you
Yeah.
said the thoughts too. Our thoughts, people say, well, you can't see your thoughts, but your thoughts are energy.
Yeah.
So whatever you're thinking and feeling, you're creating in your life and in the world. So the bottom line is to focus on what you want rather
Yeah.
than what you don't want. Focus on solutions rather than problems. Not always easy, but it's
Right.
important.
I know
Yeah,
we're just humans, but
exactly.
exactly
Exactly.
right. Because every thought matters because it's all energy in the end. It's the
Right.
vibrational frequency that you're putting out into the world. And we look to resonate and entrain with like-minded people, right? And so, but that also counts for your thoughts. So,
Mhm.
like attracts like kind of thing,
Always.
right?
Yes.
So, yeah, so and we were quite magical creatures that we kind of are co-creators of our life in many ways, right? But then we get into healing, how do we heal the people? And that's always, I think, a difficult one because people heal in different ways. Some people, once it manifests in the physical body, I always tell people, use what you got in the physical realm. I mean, use if you need Western medicine or you need Eastern medicine or whatever it is, but work at it in all different ways. Work at it physically,
Yes.
work at it energetically, work at it spiritually, because in the end, we don't know what ticket you pulled for,
Your
your incarnation.
our listeners could understand the power they have within themselves. It's just, again, as I was saying before, they could create miracles in their lives. And look at how you changed your whole life. How old were you when you went to medical school?
54.
God bless. That's amazing. It's wonderful. That's a wonderful story. That's people say, oh, they're too old for this or too old for that. No, they're not. No
No,
way.
that's what I tell people. It's
Courageous.
you're
For spirit.
never too old because I mean, now we're, people who are in their 50s, but think about it. I mean, the way medicine is moving along, we're probably all going to be 100. I mean, dying when we're in our 70s or early 80s. We're kind of, how many people do you see on social media that are celebrating their 106th birthday today and they're completely coherent, right?
Yes. Yes.
So we kind of have to expect we're going to be 100. And when
Mhm.
you're 50, you only had about 30 years of your adult life because you're not an adult until you're 21, right? And then
Yes.
even the 20s, you're still young, you're getting your first job. So at 50, you've only been an adult for 30 years. And if you got to be an adult for another 50 years, right? I mean, yeah, 50 is not that old anymore. So,
Not at
people
all.
think of, people who hate your jobs out there, go change your life. Getting a master's
Right?
degree is only 2 years.
Absolutely.
Completely. I mean, it's not that much in a time investment considering you haven't even lived half of your adult life yet.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
true. That's
Mhm.
true. Um, yeah. Live your dreams.
You're
Do what you
right.
feel guided to do. That's your spirit, within you, source within
Mhm.
you telling you what you're supposed to do. Nobody's going to force you to do anything, but go with that. Louise Hay used to say she listened to that inner ding, that little inside of you, do this, do that. And yours was go to med school. And you
Yeah.
did. It's
Right?
amazing.
Yeah, it was the spirit
Yeah.
world that dropped in on me in the kitchen, and they said, you have to become a naturopathic doctor. You have to write 2 books. No, wait, 3. You're to bring messages and healing to the people, and you're to combine East and West. And by the way, you're not going to work as a doctor full time, but you need a degree for the work you're here to do. And that was in 2004, and it didn't make sense until a few years ago. Okay, now I get it. Like, so I'm 66 now, so 58, I graduated from med school, right? So that's 8 years ago. And then it all took me into I'm working with people spiritually, but I need my medicine background because I work as a medical intuitive and
Oh, wow.
right. And so, yeah, it was really interesting. But back then it didn't make any sense. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like going to go through the whole thing of going to med school, but I'm not supposed to work as that the whole time.
Uh-huh.
Right. But then now that those messages make sense. And I had no idea what they were talking about. They said, oh, you're to bring messages and healing to the people. It's like, what are you talking about?
Didn't know
Messages
what
and
that
healing.
meant.
What
Yeah.
book? What am I writing? Right? None of it made sense back then, but it was a message from spirit. And now it had been 12 years of me here in the spirit world and loved ones passing through. I passed on and, I'm on the other side now. So at that point, that's, I knew that when I get messages like that, you trust it because they were never wrong, right? They were always right. It didn't matter
Yeah.
what it was. And seeing things before they happen and all those things, over that long period of time. So it took me 12 years to trust it.
To trust it. And I'm still
Mhm.
trying to trust, you get a message and like, that doesn't make, do you find this too? Oh, but that doesn't make any sense.
You're
And it
right.
does, but I'm afraid to say it sometimes. And yeah,
Yeah. How can people, learn more about you or work with you, learn about your books, learn about your courses and events, and where should people look for more information about you?
sure. If they go to my website at KarenNoe.com, that's KarenNoe.com. And the next few months, I'll be teaching at Omega again, at the Omega Institute. I'll be doing a retreat in Costa Rica in February about how to manifest your dreams and so forth. But if you go to my website, you'll find all that information.
That's wonderful. And how do people find your books?
Um, Barnes and Noble, you could go online. Amazon is the best place. And my well, that's the best place. Amazon, I think. This way you get it right to your delivered.
And are any of the books on Audible as well, or
Yes, we consciousness is on Audible, and we're presently in we're trying to do Your Life After Their Death on Audible as well.
oh, that's nice.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's been a true pleasure to have you as a guest today, Karen.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
As we conclude this episode, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude for your presence within my community. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe, comment, like, and share this podcast episode. Join my free newsletter in the show notes and receive new podcast episodes delivered right to your inbox. If you resonate with the interconnectedness of mind, body, and soul, and are motivated to embark on a journey of personal healing, I invite you to connect with me at drlotte.com. Together, we can pave a path towards transformative healing in your own life.